My name is Michael Kaler, and I am the lab manager of the GIAM Diffraction facility, located at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. We provide services to UT researchers and external clients. Here we see the same data sets that are found in the phase identification batch process tutorial video. This time, however, we are going to perform a search match and then perform a Rietveld refinement for each data set. Before we get into how to set up these batch processes, let's take a look at how this video will speed up your data processing. We'll start by left-clicking the Analyze View tab here, and then I will come down here and click the YouTube example batch button that I've created. We saw that it was loading the reference patterns for the first data set. It's now refining them. And once it's complete, we will see a new Excel file be created. Now we are loading reference patterns for the second data set. It's refining them. And then once that's complete, it will create a new Excel file. There we go. And now the batch is done. We have performed phase ID and phase quantification on 2 samples with different phases. If we look at the Excel files, each one will give you a different scan number that corresponds to the scan number here. We've got the scan name, temperature, the RWP of the refinement. We have the lattice parameters for each phase, the deviation. Here we have the phase quantification, and here we have crystallite size and microstrain. We didn't calculate crystallite size and microstrain, so we don't have values, it's just -1. But had we calculated those, they would show up here. So you see that we are able to collect all of this information and analyze it very quickly with batch processing. So let's take a look at how to set this up. Let's first open our data, File, Open. I will double click this Alumina Baseplate 25C. That's my first data file. Now I want to insert a data file into this HighScore Plus file. I will left click there. Here I only have one additional file. If you had multiple files that you wanted to insert, you could left click and then either Shift or Control and then click Other Files and then Open. Now we see both files here. So let me click on Analyze View. And before I forget, I like to come over here to Refinement Control, left click Global Variables, scroll down, and calculate errors. We could also change the solver tolerance if we want, but I'm not going to bother doing that now. If you want to calculate errors for each of the data sets, we do need to come over here to Scan List. Here we see the data set that is currently active. We need to go to each of our data sets and double click, come back to Refinement Control, Global Variables, and calculate errors. Once you are done doing that for all of the data sets, go back to Scan List, double click the first data set to reactivate that one because we want to start with number 1. And now we are ready to set up what are called parameter sets that will go into our batch process. Now you do have the option here of right-clicking and setting up background and search peaks. Some of this might be helpful if you have rather complex patterns where it's difficult to get good search match results to find the correct candidate reference patterns. These are simple patterns though that have common phases, so I'm going to skip those steps. If you would like to learn how to set those up, you can watch our phase identification batch process video, which I will link up above. Typically, I will just go straight to search match. And you can click in here to edit restriction sets. Now it's completely blank. I like to start off by clicking this button to make everything red, and then I will click the elements that I know are in my different data sets. One of them I know is aluminum and oxygen. The other one I know is manganese, silicon, and oxygen. So I will just list those as my possible elements and then ignore all the rest. I will come over here to quality, and because my phases are very common, I will click the star quality mark. That means that it will only search for star quality patterns, which is the highest quality. If your phases are not as common, this might result in you not getting any candidate files, so you might not want to do this. I will leave that up to you, as every situation is different. However, I do recommend you click Skip Patterns Without Structured Data, because if you accept a candidate pattern that does not have structured data, you will be unable to perform a Rietveld refinement from that reference pattern, and then this program won't work. So down here, we see that we can select restriction sets, and we can actually save this restriction set as a parameter set. So if we were to click this button, we could give it some sort of name. I'm going to call it YouTube 3. Hit enter, click OK. And now in the future, if anyone came in here and changed this stuff, I could just come down to this portion, choose YouTube 3, and it would reset all of it to be these restrictions. If you don't see this down here, this button should say more, and then if you click that, this should appear. So there we have our restrictions saved. Let's close. Now for search match, let's look at this automatic tab. Left click. I'm going to left click this identify button, and now we see that these fields are active. And these parameters are how we tell the software how to determine which candidate reference patterns we want to accept. So let me come over here to pattern list, and let me go through each of these one by one. Maximum number of accepted patterns, I have it set as 5. That means that the largest number of patterns that can be accepted is 5. Minimum candidate score of 50. That means that when you see the candidates down here, they must have a minimum score, which is this column, of 50 in order to be accepted. Search depth of 10. This means that the software will search through the top 10 candidate files in order to determine if any of them match the parameters outlined here. If multiple candidate patterns do match these parameters, it will accept the one with the highest score. Matched lines divided by total lines I have set as 50%. This is the minimum percentage of matching lines of a candidate considered for automatic identification. What I believe this means is that you must have at least 50% of the candidate lines in your data pattern in order for it to be accepted. Minimum new lines of 5. This is defined as the absolute minimum of new matching lines for each candidate. What I believe this means is that in order for a candidate to be accepted, you must have at least, in this example, 5 peaks in your data set that match the candidate, but also do not match any other accepted reference pattern. Minimum scale factor of 0, that's just exactly what it sounds like. Anything with a scale factor lower than this number won't be accepted. Mine is 0, so all of them will be accepted. Now these are just what I'm using for this video. This might not work out the best for you. Again, every situation is different, so if you need to, you are welcome to change these in order to better fit your circumstance. But now that I have these search match parameters set up, I'm going to click More. Here we see that parameter set option. and I'm going to save this. I'm going to call it YouTube 3 again, and then OK. These don't have to have the same name, I'm just doing that for consistency throughout this video. But now we have this search match parameter set saved. So that's one thing we need. We can close. The next thing we need is a refinement strategy saved. Let me come back here to Files Combined. And when I say refinement strategy, I'm just talking about these automatic fittings that you see here. Some of these come pre-installed with HighScore Plus. I believe at least default Rietveld and default profile fits. I'm pretty sure these come standard as well. But some of these I've set up myself. For example, expanded Rietveld, this factors in preferred orientation, so it will refine on preferred orientation in addition to other refinement parameters. If you want to set up your own refinement strategy, I do have a video that has parameter sets in the title. I will link that up above. You can watch that and learn how to set up your own refinement strategies and save them as parameter sets. But once we have one of those, it is the second item that we need for our batch process. The third item is the part that lets us output all of these data to Excel. If you want to do that, you will need a user script. So we will go to Tools and Script Editor. Left click. We see this screen, and under Modules and Scripts, we should have a variety of different scripts. Some of them, again, come pre-installed with HighScore Plus. A lot of these are just me trying different things in order to see if I can make them work, basically. You'll see I have a number of test ones here, but let me left click. I think it's YouTube 2 I'm using. Here you can see the script. It is written in Object Pascal. I'll scroll down. You'll see it's not all that long. If you're not a programmer, it might look complicated. From my limited understanding, it's not that complicated. It might not be the most elegantly written. I am not really a programmer. I just know enough to do what needs to be done in certain circumstances. So you're welcome to take this program, modify it if you like, but I will post this on our website. And check the description below for the link and whatever I will wind up naming it. It might not be YouTube 2, but I will save it to the website in a text format. If you open that text format or that text file and then click Control-A on the keyboard, Control-C on the keyboard, you'll just want to come up here to this button, left click, New Script, name it whatever you like. I'm just going to call it, once again, YouTube 3. Left click, highlight that, and then Control-V to paste it. I will scroll up, and then just change the program name to match whatever you saved it here, and save. So now you have the user script that I've used in order to make this video. Let's come up here and close. Even though we have this user script, we still need to save it as a parameter set. So let's go to Customize, Edit Parameter Sets. I will scroll down and find user script right there. Double click. Here you can give it a description if you like. I'm just going to call it YouTube 3. Big surprise. You select whichever script you want to turn into a parameter set, so I will choose YouTube 3. And then I will save this as a parameter set. YouTube 3. Again, you can name this something else if you want. It doesn't all have to match. Left click OK. We see that it's saved there. Now I will close and close. So thankfully we have the 3 different parts that we need for the batch program. Let's now make our batch program by going to Customize and left-click, Edit User Batches. If you want, you can choose an existing batch and then modify it, or you can make a new batch. Left-click there. Give this some sort of name. I am going to call it YouTube 3. You can copy the batch steps from some previously existing batch if you like, or you can just make an empty batch. And then you can give it a description if you like. I'll click OK. We see that the batch is empty, and over here we have all of the things that we can then use to insert into our batch. Let me scroll down. The first thing that I want to do is perform a search match, so I will left-click the plus sign. I want to use that YouTube 3, so I can click it, and then click this button to add it to our batch, or you can just left-click and drag it, and put it inside that way. Once we perform a search match, we then want to refine it, so I will go to Automatic Fitting Steps, click the plus sign. I want to use this expanded Rietveld, so I will left-click and drag that over. We will shrink that, and then after we refine it, we want to use our user script, YouTube 3, to export it to Excel. There is one more batch of options that we need to look at, and that can be found down here. Let's go over each one of these. Here, this says apply this batch on all data sets of the document. We definitely want to do that because we want all of our data sets to be analyzed. This one says use reference patterns from anchor dataset. And what this means is that if we click this button, it would look at the anchor dataset, which is this first one. It would take the patterns that have been accepted and then copy those patterns into all of our other data sets. Now this is great if all of your data sets contain the same phases, but ours do not, so we do not want to click this button. Next, we have structured data source, and it is currently set to initial anchored dataset. What that means is that when refining the phases in this dataset, it will use the refined values from the anchored dataset as starting values. So these refined values will be used as starting values in this dataset. We don't want to do this because these datasets have different phases. So instead, what we will do is choose none. This way, it will take the patterns from whatever data set that we are analyzing, convert those to phases, and then refine based off of the default values. You do see that we also have this last used anchor data set. That is great for, say, thermal expansion experiments, and you can see that type of batch process analysis in the video linked up above. But for this one, we want to choose none. Allowed dataset types, I don't really mess with this. I just always leave them all checked, so I don't have a whole lot to say about this one. But once we click OK, we will see our new button here in our batch process toolbar. If you do not see the batch toolbar there, it might be somewhere else on your screen. If you don't see it anywhere on the screen, you can come up here to your toolbars, right click, and make sure that there is a check mark next to Batches toolbar. You'll see it if I click it, that toolbar went away. If I right click, and it appears. Now if we go back to our non-analyzed HighScore file, we could click YouTube 3, and it will go through and perform all of the refinements again. We could right-click, show graphics, difference plot, if we like, so that we can keep an eye on how well it's refining. But that's pretty much it for this video. If you have found it helpful at all, I do ask that you like the video, comment, maybe subscribe to the channel. Whatever you can do really helps us out. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. And otherwise, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day.